My name is Myra, and I'm 33 years old. I bought that condo with 7 years of my life. 7 years of skipping vacations, eating leftovers at my desk, pulling doubles on weekends, and saying no to things normal people my age took for granted. Every single dollar I saved went into that down payment. By the time I signed the papers, I cried in my car for 20 minutes, not from sadness, but from the kind of relief that only comes after you've carried something unbearably heavy for a very long time. That condo was mine. A 2-bedroom, top floor, corner unit overlooking the city. $350,000. My name on the deed. My future made solid. Christmas that year was at my parents' house, same as always. My mom had the tree up the week after Thanksgiving, the kind of tree that looked like it belonged in a department store window, perfectly decorated, every ornament placed with intention. The smell of roasted chicken and cinnamon filled the whole house. My sister Nora was there with her husband Brett and their 2 kids. Brett had been between jobs for almost a year and a half. Nobody said it out loud, but it sat at the table with us like an uninvited guest. I was in the kitchen pouring myself a glass of water when I heard my father's voice drifting in from the living room. He was talking in that low, careful tone he uses when he's already decided something and is only now announcing it. I didn't move. I just stood there, glass in hand, and listened. He was telling Brett and Nora that they needed stability, that the kids needed a real home, that it wasn't right for a family to be squeezed into a 2-bedroom rental while things sorted themselves out. And then he said it, plain as weather, that Myra's condo would be the perfect solution, that he and Mom had talked it over, that since I was single, I could always find another place, rent something smaller for now, maybe move back home temporarily while I saved again. He said it like it was already done, like the only remaining step was telling me. My mother's voice came next, softer but agreeable. She said I was practical, that I'd understand, that I'd always been the strong one, the one who figured things out. She said Nora's family needed it more right now. I stood in that kitchen for what felt like a long time. The water in my glass was perfectly still. I didn't storm in. I didn't yell. I walked back to the dining room, set my glass down, and sat in my chair. When my father looked at me from across the table with that expression, the one he uses when he's about to deliver news he's already dressed up as a favor, I smiled. I kept my face completely calm. I asked him to pass the bread. He did. Dinner went on. Nora kept glancing at me sideways all evening. Brett looked relieved in that boneless way men do when someone else has solved their problem for them. My mother touched my arm twice during dessert, gentle little pats that were supposed to mean something. I smiled through all of it. I laughed at my nephew's joke about his teacher. I helped clear the plates. When I hugged everyone goodbye at the door, I held my mother a second longer than usual. She whispered in my hair that she knew I'd understand. I told her, of course. I loved her. And I meant it. I did love her, but love and understanding are 2 very different things, and she had confused them her whole life. I drove home that night in complete silence. No music, no podcast, nothing. Just the city lights sliding past my windows and the quiet hum of the engine. By the time I pulled into my building's parking garage, I had already made my decision. It wasn't a decision made in anger. It wasn't dramatic or impulsive. It was simply the logical conclusion of what I had heard. They had made a plan for my life without asking me a single question. So I was going to make a plan too. And I was going to move considerably faster than they expected. I called my realtor the next morning at 8 a.m. sharp. Her name was Sandra, and she had sold me the condo 3 years earlier. She knew the building, knew the market, and most importantly, she knew how to move fast when the situation called for it. I told her I needed to list immediately and close before the end of the year. She went quiet for exactly 2 seconds, then said she had a cash buyer who had been circling the building for months, waiting for a unit to open up. I told her to make the call. She asked if I was sure. I said I had never been more sure of anything in my life. What my parents did not know, what nobody in my family knew, was that I had received a job offer 4 months earlier from a firm based in Denver. Senior position, 30% salary increase, full relocation package. I had been sitting on it, going back and forth, feeling the pull of familiarity that keeps people in places they've quietly outgrown. Christmas dinner made the decision for me. I accepted the offer the same morning I called Sandra. By the time my family was sitting down to leftover turkey the next day, I had already set two things in motion that could not be undone. The cash sale closed in 11 days. 11 days. The buyer didn't negotiate, didn't ask for repairs, didn't stall over inspections. He wanted the unit and he paid for it. I walked out of the title office on December 29th with a cashier's check and a lightness in my chest I hadn't felt in years. I stood on the sidewalk outside, looked up at the gray winter sky, and exhaled slowly. Then I went home, to the condo that was no longer mine, which I had arranged to vacate by the 31st, and I finished packing. I had already shipped 3 boxes to Denver. My car was loaded with everything else that mattered. I gave my furniture to a neighbor who was just starting out and needed it more than I needed the hassle of moving it. I kept my bed until the last night, then left it behind too. On the morning of December 31st, New Year's Eve, I handed the keys to the new owner's property manager, walked down to my car, and drove away. I did not call my parents to tell them. I did not call Nora. I did not send a message, leave a note, or post anything on social media. I simply left. I was 4 hours outside the city before my phone made its first sound. A call from my mother. I let it ring. Then another. Then my father. Then Nora. Then Brett, which surprised me, because Brett had never once called me directly about anything in the 3 years he had been married to my sister. I kept driving. I stopped once for gas and coffee, and by the time I was back on the highway, the missed calls had started stacking up in a way that would have been almost funny if the situation had been any different. By the time I reached my hotel that evening, I had 79 missed calls between the 4 of them. 79. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed and scrolled through the logs slowly, the way you read something you want to fully absorb. My mother had called 23 times. My father 11. Nora had somehow managed 31, which told me she had found out about the sale before my parents did, probably through a neighbor or someone connected to the building. Brett had called 14 times, which told me everything I needed to know about what was actually driving the panic on their end. I texted my mother one message. It said, "The condo sold on the 29th. I've relocated for work. I'm safe. I'll be in touch when I'm ready. I love you." Then I turned my phone off, ordered room service, and watched the New Year's Eve countdown on a television in a hotel room in a city that didn't know my name yet. When the ball dropped, I sat quietly with a ginger ale and thought about the woman who had stood in her parents' kitchen 8 days earlier, holding a glass of still water, listening to her future being casually handed to someone else. I thought about how small she had felt in that moment. And I thought about how different she felt now. Nobody gives away what you've built without consequences. Not parents, not sisters, not anyone who assumes your silence means agreement. I had spent 33 years being the strong one, the practical one, the one who figured things out. They were right about that part. What they miscalculated was what I would figure out once they showed me exactly who they were at a Christmas dinner table. Denver was cold and unfamiliar and completely mine. I slept better that night than I had in years. And I haven't looked back since. If this story hit different for you, you already know what to do. Subscribe to the channel. More stories like this, every single week, from people who stopped waiting for permission and started living on their own terms.